So good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this panel number 14. It's about successful business strategies of rural FTTH deployments. My name is Andreas Waber, and I'm from Switzerland. I'm running Swiss FibreNet in Switzerland. First, I would like to give you a bit of an update how we go along with this panel. So we'll have the introduction of our 5 panelists as the first part of the panel. Then in the second part, I will open it for a Q&A session, and last part of the panel will be a Q&A open for you as the audience. Before we start with the topic, I would like to give you some context about rural FTTH. So what is rural FTTH? According to the EU, a region called rural is a region that has less than 150 inhabitants per square kilometer. So that's a definition of rural. And I wanted to draw your attention to a very interesting report that has just been published by the FTTH Council. You know, maybe the FTTH Panorama. This is the report about the overall deployment statistics. And this report is specifically done for rural. So it gives you the context of different countries, EU 27, and the UK, how do they do about the rural deployment. And in that report, you will find interesting numbers. 2015, only 5% of these rural deployments have been done, and almost 10 years later now, 24, we are at a number of 64%, which I think is a good achievement. So shows that rural deployment takes really precedence in Europe. What will be the coverage of the content in that panel? So my panelists will speak about how they achieved this 64% coverage in their territories, but they will as well speak about what options are still there to kind of bridge the gap, to close it to the 90% or even 100% coverage. We'll now start with David Elfassi, as the president of Altitude Infra, and he will introduce himself and the company. Please, David.
Okay. Thank you. Up. My name is David Elfassi from Altitude. We are a wholesaler French operator. And we operate at the moment only in France, but we try to go out of France because our rolling out is now finished in France. So behind me, you can see 2 beautiful sentences, but in reality, what we do, we prepare with optical fiber the best way for all the creator of new application to feel free using internet, to feel free using this bandwidth, because we have no limit, so you have no limit in creation after we build optical fiber. In France, we are only in a wholesale model with 2 brands. We address FTTH market, so the B2C market, with the brand Altitude Infra. We already built 5 million home passed in France. I will explain it later, but through different public tenders. We are connected to the 4 major ISPs in France, so Orange, Iliad, Altice, and Bouygues Telecom. And we already connect 2.4 million home passed at the end of 2024. We also address through coverage almost 2 million companies and around 150,000 companies are already connected to our networks. We have a good position in France. We are like the 3rd operator of infrastructure in France, behind Orange and SFR. And On the B2C part, we work only in rural areas, but on the B2B part, we are everywhere in dense, medium, and rural areas. And the global revenues of the group is almost 800 million euros in 2025, and we are now it's in 2025 we are 2,000 employees. The next slide is to explain the French model, but we can use this slide when you will answer me questions. Okay?
Oh, great. Thank you very much, David. So the next panelist comes from far. It's Jimmy Todd. He's CEO and General Manager of NextTech, and actually he comes from the US.
Good afternoon. So I'm Jimmy Todd. I'm the CEO and General Manager for NextTech, and we're headquartered in a small town in northwest Kansas. This is a little geography. Center part of the US, northwest part of the state. And our headquarters is in a town of about 150 people. So when you talk about the rural threshold, we operate in what I would consider probably the ultra-rural footprint. The teal area that you see here is the area that we cover. We started out as a rural cooperative telephone company, so you had regulated exchange service areas, and from that we transitioned into a broadband company. We also were the first in the country to bring fiber to a rural community, as well as the first in the US to compete against an incumbent service provider. So we were kind of unusual when it comes to small providers. The parent company is Rural Telephone Service Company, and in 1989 we founded NextTech. This is when the company began to evolve, not only from providing telephone service to providing broadband, but also in where we provided service and going outside of those traditional boundaries, if you will. A couple of years ago, we bought another little telco, which is in central Kansas, called Mound Ridge Telephone. And what we've been able to do is not only across our cooperative footprint, but also in the Mound Ridge footprint, we have 100% fiber to the home and business. So that's something that when you think about a rural provider and the small towns that we serve, the importance of our small communities, agriculture, you look at public safety, all of this requires the fiber connectivity. The challenge is that when you are serving in these ultra low density areas, the average revenue per user is low. So over time, we began to evolve. Most of these products and services are tied directly to our fiber. When you think about the internet service, you think about television, voice service, but there were also things that we needed to provide to our small communities because we had technical expertise. So we became an IT MSP, managed service provider. From that, we began through acquisitions to expand that across the entire state and into a regional footprint. Media and marketing. Back in the day, we had local television product that we would put together, and from that, it transitioned to advertising and such for our small businesses. And then we found a niche as providing that to broadband service providers. We have a network operations center that not only does it monitor our network, but it also monitors networks across the US. So we have multiple statewide fiber networks that are our customers, as well as other ISPs that provide service. So that allowed us to continue to grow our organization because we would take profits from that and continue pushing it into fiber. The area that we serve is over 11,000 square miles, so about the size of Albania. And within that, if you think of our cooperative footprint, the subscriber density is just a little over 1.5 persons per square mile, significantly less than that threshold you talked about. You go into the areas that we've expanded into, the communities that we serve outside of that, and it pushes it up to 6. So again, through this, we'll talk about it later, but we've leveraged different mechanisms to help us to do that. One of the things that, I was asked to talk about is how we, deploy our fiber. And I'm a big believer in buried fiber because of the longevity of the plant. And I want to be able to protect it. We live in Tornado Alley. I don't know if anybody has ever experienced the aftermath of a tornado, but I can tell you that aerial plant is easily destroyed. So we focus on buried plant in very rural areas. It's direct buried. In our towns, we put it in conduit. And we've leveraged things such as universal services support, low interest loans, and then grants from both the federal and state. So we continue looking for ways to build a business case to edge out our network and basically provide services to our neighbors. Look forward to the discussion, and I'll pass it over to Marta.
Now we have Marta Wojciechowska from Poland, CEO of FibreHost. Please, Marta.
Thank you very much for the invitation. I'm very pleased to be here another year in a row together with Andreas. So let me share today a few words about FibreHost, about the growth of our network, and how we impacted Poland's digital landscape. So basically, we've been operating in Poland for over 30 years. But today I would like to focus just on the theme of our panel, so rural areas. So I would like to take you back 8-9 years. So imagine 9 years prior to today. In Poland, there are around 15 million of households. And back then, as you can see, 400,000 households in Poland were within the FTTH coverage. So very small amount. And I can proudly say that FibreHost was the first company, maybe not first, but one of the first companies in Poland that entered into the FTTH technology. So back then, out of 400,000 households in Poland made in fiber, FibreHost owned half of it. So quite a big and nice number. And what we did back then, we thought, okay, our mission is the digital inclusion of residents of Poland. So we decided to fight against digital exclusion. So we thought that when we want to focus on rural areas, we need to start thinking otherwise. We need to think about open access networks, about multi-fiber technology. So after 25 years of operating as an integrated operator, we decided to open our commercial network. And let other operators to use our fiber network. This was a game changer and really a shift in the market. But we knew that open access is a real answer for digital inclusion of rural areas. So basically, we decided that, first of all, we need to build the infrastructure. We focused on expansion, we focused on new investments. During this period, we participated in EU-funded programs. And during this period, between 2017 and 2023, we built 840,000 households in FTTH. And out of this number, 80% was located in the rural areas. And as you may expect, there were many challenges. I gave you some numbers so that you can imagine how difficult it was in Poland. So basically, connecting one HP, one household in these excluded areas, in these white spots, it's 5 times higher than in the urban areas. When we are looking at the investments, it's very important to see what will be our potential profits. And when we are talking about 1 kilometer of network in the urban areas, out of this 1 kilometer, we can get 200 clients, 200 residents who wants to buy our services. Whereas in the rural areas, in the same 1 kilometer, which costs 5 times higher, we can get only 17 residents interested in our network. So the potentially monetizing of the network at the rural areas is significantly lower. I don't need to mention that this investment phase was during COVID, during war in Ukraine, so really difficult and complicated process. But happily, we managed to finish finish the investments that we started. We have gained a lot of experience during this period. And as you can see, our network, as of today, achieves 1.3 million households. So we tripled, I may say, our coverage. And this blue part, this is Poland, and the yellow part, this is where our network is present. So basically from an operator located strictly in one region of Poland, we became an operator that operates in 8 out of 16 regions in Poland. And right now, our approach changed a little bit, because as we managed to build a lot of infrastructure and digitally include a lot of rural residents, now we are focusing on getting the saturation and use of our network that was built as high as possible. And to finish, I would like to say a few words regarding the topic, the topic of our panel. What is our way? Of course, first of all, open access, this is a must. All the subsidized programs are very helpful and basically something very important in thinking about investing in rural areas. But also something that is special for, maybe not special, but it is very visible in Polish market is the cooperation, and cooperation in different phases. During the investment process, this is cooperation with local authorities, which is essential for the field phase. Then at the commercialization stage, cooperation with the service providers. And what we need to always have in mind is that whatever we do for people. And as we are talking about rural areas, we have to bear in mind that those are areas that are depopulating, areas where elder people live. So we see that there is a huge need to educate those people and to help these people to enter into the internet awareness. So a part of building the infrastructure, we must all be aware of the things that are needed, why we are doing it. We are doing this for the residents and for their sake. So thank you very much. I'm looking forward for the discussion, and I hope that you will be enjoying it.
Thank you very much, Marta. And now from Poland to Spain, I welcome José Antonio Vázquez Blanco, the CEO of Onivia, and please.
Thank you. Thank you, Andreas, for your kind presentation. It's a pleasure to be here with these fantastic colleagues, and especially to be able to talk about something very important in Spain, which is how to close the digital breach in rural areas. This is basically a key for us because it's a very big country in terms of size, and there is a lot of dispersion in terms of demography, okay? So I will first talk a little bit about Onivia. When we talk about Onivia, we talk about people. So I always start my presentation showing my team, which I'm proud of. We are 27 people managing a big asset of, you will see, several million fiber homes all over Spain. And after the people, the keywords that you can see in the slide are important for me, and it's how we define the company when we were created in December 2019. And what we said to the Spanish market is that we wanted to be a disruptive telecom proposal, creating a unique, neutral and independent operator, which was providing open access, real open access to our network, providing the best quality and the best transparency, okay? And this is important not because it's a good sentence, it's because it's the DNA of the company, and it's something that will probably make you understand how we are facing our rural rollouts, okay? So if we, from that moment that we start, we have become a little bit bigger. We started with 700K building units in metropolitan areas, and during the last 5 years, we have grown in both organically, buying another networks, and also, inorganically, buying other networks, and also organically doing rollouts, okay? So we have reached almost 10.2 million fiber homes passed now. We are aiming to close the year in 11 million fiber homes passed, which means that we are covering 1,400 municipalities. Up to now, we have been offering up to 1 gigabytes. In the next couple of months, we will formally launch our 10 gigabytes offer, up to 10 gigabytes offer symmetric for all of our customers, okay? 35% of these building units, 3.5 million up to now, have been rolled out in rural areas. So we have a lot of experience, and we are really committed and compromised with the digital gap breach closing in Spain, okay? Because when we talk about that, we talk about connecting people, about creating opportunities, and the panel is we are talking about how to turn the complexity of rural deployments into successful business case. But for us, it's also a successful case, because when we arrive to a rural area with a good FTTH rollout, we create value for the population and for the community, and I think that's very important, okay? Three elements, two very important for us, and this is linked with the first sentence. When we are neutral and independent, this is critical. When we talk about open access, we mean open access. We eliminate all the barriers to make any ISP company, service company, B2B integrator able to connect with us and serve their products to the final customers. And this was completely new in the Spanish market. So we can integrate any customer in 4 to 8 weeks' time and abilitate to sell in any place of our network with an affordable pricing. So that's the big DNA of the company. We are really open, okay? And it's true, and it's something we believe in. We are independent. We have no legacy. We have all of our Tier 1 customers, all of them are customers of us, Tier 2. We have electricity companies also, so we are agnostic. We want as many customers as we can have in the network, selling their services to the end user. And this is finally ended in more than now today. It says 70, but now today is 80 different customers accessing to the network. And for example, we have some rural municipalities with less than 2K inhabitants with more than 4 ISPs serving. And this creates competition. This creates new choices for the final customer and benefits for all, okay? And talking about a little bit where we see ourselves, it's important to see that obviously we want to continue leading the change of the fiber landscape in Spain. You know that we have been very successful as a country, but there is still a lot of things to do, especially in rural areas. So we want to contribute as a relevant company on that side. When we talk about rural, it's important to talk of anything else from connectivity. We have realized connectivity is the first step. You arrive, you provide the bandwidth, But the second step is to provide added-value services, because in that areas there are companies, small, medium ones, there are schools, hotels, and you need to provide concrete connectivity solutions with value-added services. So now we are having very interesting discussions with partners in order to go there, okay, to be just more than a connectivity provider, okay? Our future aim is to be the neutral champion. We don't have a specific aim in terms of building units, but we'll arrive to 11 million this year, and I think with other agreements we will be able to arrive to 12 or 13 million in the coming couple of years. And finally, and very important also, we are a company which is driven by efficiency and by sustainability. And when we talk about rural areas, this is something very important. At least in Spain, rural areas are the most protected ones. So everything we do, every rollout, every activity we have, sustainability and an eco-friendly perspective is something that must be in the middle of the table. And it's something very important for us in order to reduce electricity consumption and be efficient in the rest of the business, okay? So this is Onivia, this is where we are coming. I will be happy to join the panel to discuss about the challenges we have faced in these rollouts, the opportunities we see, and also the situation in Spain around this interesting matter. Thank you.
Thank you very much, José. So we move to Simon Rosas. Simon is the head of European digital infrastructure at CVC-DIF, and he's representing the perspective of investors in that panel. Please.
Thank you, Andreas. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you all for gathering on the last day after lunch. I think it shows the importance of the rural fiber for everyone. So I'll just give you a quick investor perspective of how we see this particular segment of digital investment from our perspective, and maybe initially just introduce and to explain who we are and from what angle we look at it. So overall, we are originally a Dutch firm that started out of Schiphol and grew from 2005 to the current size of about 19 billion euros under management. This is across various infrastructure assets, so it's not just digital, it's also your standard other infrastructure verticals. We're not a permanent capital. We raise money, we invest it, and then we exit some of the investments over time, ultimately exiting them all. But probably the most important thing is that we are a large team of focus specialists that are looking at each sector, at each location, and trying to understand exactly how it works to make sure that it actually fits as an infrastructure investment. You know, certain things are important to build, but difficult to make money from. And we try and put that investor rigorous approach to make sure that it suits to our investors. One of the most important aspects probably is the fact that we do have a strong presence across various locations. Initially from the DIF network, we have presence in the main offices in Europe, also in the US and Canada, as well as in Australia and Latin America. The main real advantage that I think it gives us is really understanding how these markets work, and in particular, if you look at something like fiber, European geographies are all fairly complex. Even within the countries, there are various differences and various things to understand. It really helps us to have that local presence to understand how things work and therefore identify those situations that work for us. More recently, we've become now part of CVC, which gives us that global reach as well and ability to see things more in more geographies and more jurisdictions. Just a little bit of explanation that we tend to do the medium-sized deals, so focusing more on transactions that are, let's say, more graspable in terms of the mid-sized European countries or a smaller location somewhere in the countries, and we try and build those out either into regional champions or national champions and make them really scalable, efficient organizations that are covering substantial part of the market. The reason we do that is we find more opportunities, especially through that local network in those markets, and are therefore able to find those and eventually exit them, hopefully in a bigger size to some of the bigger buyers. Two particular strategies that we run is we look at what we call the core funds, which are larger by nature, look at more established risks, at more established constructed entities. We only have one digital asset in that strategy, which is the recent acquisition of Lumière Fibre from TDF, and that's because of the maturity of the French low-density market and the fact that this is mainly a build similar to the other French network present here. It's fundamentally already built. It is only densifying and increasing the capital, the penetration by deploying capital to make the last connections. But a lot of the risk has already been removed. A lot of the other fiber platforms that we invest in are in the value add segment, which takes more construction risk, takes more risk of commercialization of some of those networks, and has to therefore be more cautious and more hands-on in a way that it's being managed. And finally, maybe the most interesting bit, so with all those filters and all those approaches that we take to look at the various markets, this is the final digital portfolio that we have. I'll ignore the data centers for the time being, that's not the subject. But if you look at where we are, we have a lot of rural presence, first of all in central Canada, where we've built out a lot of the very remote areas to connect them to fiber with its own, maybe not as sparsely populated as in Kansas, but certainly with a similar kind of challenges of getting to those customers and connecting businesses. Some of them very good businesses that have a lot of value, but still need that connectivity that nobody else is able to provide. Likewise in Europe, besides the French low-density fiber, which we like very much, we're doing a lot of the smaller towns and suburban areas in Finland, which will soon enable us to access some of the rural areas there as well. And we like that because fundamentally it protects you from overbuild. Fundamentally, we believe there is no better fiber infrastructure than rural fiber infrastructure, because once it's built, it's very unlikely to be overbuilt. It has its own challenges, but it's really infrastructure that's going to be used for many years to come without too much competition, providing the essential service that is not going to be surpassed. With that in mind, I'll maybe mention also that I think the job is not done. There's a lot of market that's been spoken for. People have said that they will build this and they will build that, but the actual build hasn't yet happened, as we've seen from a lot of the statistics, and we're looking to play an important part in that journey. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Simon. Very insightful. So, after this nice introduction, let's now focus on France. So, let's start with France. Based on the numbers, in France we have 27% of the households are considered as rural, and out of that already 85% are covered, so that's a very nice, good result, so shows that France is ahead of other countries. You, as Altitude Infra, you're a key player in this game, in this rural fiber expansion, and maybe you can give a bit of insight. What are your biggest challenges in scaling up this rural FTTH in France, and how have you overcome them?
When you want to do a new activity on FTTH or what else, you need a good business plan, you need finance, and you need human resources. And to feel confident each part, you need to follow a good plan. And like said Marta, a national plan is important, not only with the subsidies, but with the vision. And in France, it was 10 or 15 years ago, the government decided to fix a global plan. They said, okay, in the dense area, you can have overbuilding, and you can build different networks. In the dense area, in the medium dense area, the private operator will finance the deployment of the FTTH, and they will have like a monopoly forever on this part. And for the rural areas, the government and the local authorities can help different operators with subsidies, because the cost is like in Poland, more higher in rural area than in the cities. But they fix it. So we respond to different public tenders. Like I said, we won 5 million home passed. And it's easy for us because we have a good business plan, because a good visibility. We know that we can use this 5 million home passed for an average time of 25 to 30 years. It's a wholesale model. The price is fixed by the regulator. The regulation is another important point. So we know the price that we will sell to the 4 principal ISPs in France. We know that we won't have any overbuild. So you can do a good business plan. It's easy to find finance when you are in this case. Mm-hmm. And the human resources, to respond to your question, to answer your question, when you arrive with all your subcontractors, you are already financed. Mm-hmm. You have a global project. You say to each subcontractor, okay, I give you this area, you have got 5 years to deploy these areas. I give you a global contract, you can have new employees, you can buy machines, you can continue. And it's easy to find a lot of human resources to help you with a global plan. In France, we have a lot of change, not the government and only the regulation, but we can reuse for 80% the existing assets of the incumbent of Orange, the conduit, the poles. So it's quite easier than in other countries to deploy it, and the
price is regulated.
Yeah,
Yes,
and the engineering, global engineering is fixed between the different ISPs and the government because they give subsidies. Okay, the IT system we create in France, a group, the name is Underserved Fibre, and in this group we fix the rules between the operator of infrastructures and the retailers to do the eligibility, to do the production, to do the maintenance after that in a unique IT system between all of these players. It's why, to answer your question, we didn't have real difficulties to deploy due to the fact that we have a lot of determination of the government, a lot of determination of the local authorities, and of my shareholders also. And after that, when you have visibility, you have cash, you have human resources, the rest is just natural.
So what you're saying, a quite tight regulated market, regulated approach with the different stakeholders led to that success of high population coverage and good usage of fibers.
And like in each country, I think the last problem we have today is the rest for the 2% of the really rural areas where it's really difficult to connect a specific home far from everything.
I think we heard that in another panel, this 2% number, which is still a big number. How big is the population in France? It's about 60 million or?
Yes, like I said, in a few years it will be 70 million in France.
So
but we need to build 41 million home passed globally in France. So 2%, it's not so much. But when you are in the 2%, you think it's really much.
Good, thanks. So another context, the US. I do not have these numbers that I have for the European countries, since the US is not covered in that report that I quoted. But maybe, Jim, you can give us a bit of a context. How do you do this deployment in Kansas? I have taken back from your presentation that your kind of population is lower than this average in the EU countries. So how do you get along with the deployment in Kansas?
So in the U.S., for the high-cost service areas, there's a program called Universal Services Program. It is designed to allow for both CapEx and OpEx in these areas, because quite honestly, these are the areas that the larger companies, when they built out network, did not see a business case to build. When telephone service was the primary driver of communications, the phone calls that came to these very rural areas were very expensive. And so when a divestiture took place and the government was trying to inspire more competition, one of the things that got put in place was universal service. It was kind of a trade-off from those high access rates to try and make sure that there was going to be funding in these rural areas. So through that, it's designed to make sure that if you're a high-cost rural operator, you operate at least at a small margin, a positive margin. With that, we were able to leverage low-cost or low-interest loans, either through U.S. Department of Agriculture's Rural Utility Service or through lenders like CFC or CoBank. And through that, because we had the universal service support, it helped them feel more comfortable about providing the financing we needed to build our network, because we had that sustainable source of revenue to drive, payments going into the future. Also, as a cooperative, we have tax advantages, which allows for us to continue to further reinvest any profits back into the network that we've built. So through that, as I mentioned earlier, our focus, which started in the mid-90s, we finally reached all of our cooperative members. Then we began edging out from that. In the Obama administration, there was a program called American Reinvestment and Recovery Act, ARA. And through that, we received a $100 million grant loan award. That allowed us to expand outside of our cooperative footprint. And because of fiber, with the OpEx being significantly lower than a copper network, we're able to do that without really increasing a lot of headcount. We tied it back to our core network. We utilized the personnel that we already had employed. And quite honestly, as we transitioned from copper to fiber, it allowed us to do more. So with that, we continue to expand that fiber footprint so that we can now reach from northwest to the central part of the state of Kansas.
So this cooperative model is a kind of a self-helping model, of the citizens inside.
It really is. It is. When these small networks were put together, it was literally farmers stringing wire up along fence posts to have connectivity to their farm back to the small towns. And through time, we transitioned that to buried copper and then transitioned it to fiber.
Right. So again, back to Europe, to you, Marta. I mean, Poland is a big country as well. Many inhabitants. Here the numbers are 32% rural out of the total population, and only, I would say, 62% is covered, so it's a bit lower than the French example. But FibreHost, as you have explained, is really one of the major contributors in that rollout. So can you give us some examples of your success factors? How did you get along in these rural deployments, and maybe share some insights, what worked and what maybe did not work?
Well, as for the deployment, of course, there always should be a mix of the methods that was good in the past, but also some innovative approaches toward what to use. And in case of FibreHost, before entering into strictly rural areas, we were focusing on underground networks, and that was, stable and easy to operate on further on. But as we had to enter the rural areas, it turned out that it would be just impossible to get to many of the places with the underground network. That's why we had to switch our attitude, and we went into aerial networks. So I can tell that in the rural areas, aerial network is a key. This is very fast in building, cheaper. During the maintenance phase, probably there are more cons than pros, but when we are talking about deployment, when you need to get to these difficult places, then definitely this is the key. And aerial network was really a game changer for us. Of course, during the investment process, you need to stay focused and flexible, and you need to be able to redesign wherever possible. So this is a key. And I'm talking, describing the aerial network, using the aerial network. This is for our big investment. And as of today, as we finished this big investment phase, we are focusing on the densification, mostly in rural areas. And here, our attitude is yet completely different, because we are focusing on the future and focusing on efficiently using of our network. That's why we are in cooperation with local authorities, with subcontractors, and even with residents. We have launched several programs with local authorities to focus on their areas and what to do to make the investment profitable for us, so that if we know that we have the residents that are interested in our network, in our services, then we are building at this place. We even have the program when residents themselves want to pay a certain amount of money to be connected. So for us, this is really something that we are focusing right now on, because we need to think about future profits, we need to think about the return on investments, and while we are sure that we will have the clients, the residents who will use our network, the investment decision is easier. So in rural areas, thinking about the saturation, the take-up after the build is really crucial thing.
Yeah. Are you using some tactics to kind of protect your business case, like a minimum sign-up rate in different regions or anchor tenant agreements?
No, we do. No, we do not. We are, well, open access network operator, and by the way, I really believe that this is the key. As Simon mentioned, from the investment point of view, rural networks are very good for the investors, because most probably they will stay unique networks. And obviously in these rural areas where the cost of deployment is so high, the competition on the infrastructure level just doesn't make sense. So to make a good offer for the residents, for the end user, using the existing open access networks is a key. We made this research among the people that are living on the rural areas, and well, not surprisingly, it turns out that the price of the service for end user is one of the main factors that they are taking into consideration. So in this case, this open access networks in rural areas are, I can say, a must.
Yeah, so open access is a must to
Yes.
be successful in rural.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marta. Now, Spain. Spain, again, different market. The numbers, 27 rural households, 27% rural households, 63 coverage. So there's still some coverage to go if you want to achieve 90 to 100% coverage. So can you maybe give a bit of insights? What are your challenges in deploying further? Maybe I read from your presentation that you have over 70 internet service providers using your services. So have they maybe developed specific packages in order to be offered at more rural parts of the country?
Yeah. Regarding the deployments, we in Spain, as probably across Europe, we face in rural areas a problem of a different speed if you compare with metropolitan areas, and this is obviously related to efficiency and cost. In Spain, the distance between the big cities and these municipalities, which are completely dispersed all over the country, are high. So the first cost you have to take into consideration is transmission, is backbone, which is the first big problem you face when you are doing this in Spain, at least probably all over Europe. The second one is that Fibre works, and also capillarity. You need a high capillarity in order to cover many little houses in many little towns that are together. Okay, so at the end of the day, it's a question of investment, capex, high capex, and if you compare it with the metropolitan, in which you can do a building unit by 75, 80 euros, and you go now to 500, the big operators decided not to go there because of efficiency. So neutral operators as Onivia and others that are in the market in Spain, we are doing what I think is a good business case. We put the money, we take the challenge, we learn the methodology of how to do these deployments, and then we have an industrial machine for this. Every time you get a little town is a different situation, but we have the methodology, and once we have it industrialized, we can just do that. and there is no sense for the other operators to do the same after us. So it's a question of efficiency, and we are driving that, okay? So we build first, and then the second big driver is an industrial one, which is, as Marta says, we are really open. So we are keen to have everybody inside the network. We put all facilities there. I mean, it's no integration, no CapEx investment on their side. Just get connected. Affordable pricing. There is no regulation in Spain for pricing, so you can adapt the offer to the operator and try to fix the good angle, and try to have 70 ISPs or 80 ISPs. And at the end of the day, the third benefit is the one you were requesting, is these ISPs are making concrete offers for these rural areas. And they are accelerating the digitalization, because in these areas we have a lot of old age people that probably are not interested in having access in internet. But if you go there with an adequate offer with fixed phone, internet, and a very good pricing, they probably take it, and they will probably start using it. So as I was mentioning in my presentation, we have some municipalities with 4, 5, 6 operators. So you increase competitiveness, you get better choices for the customers. We are starting to talk with enterprise services, because there are small, medium enterprises in these areas that require connectivity and more things. So these three elements, efficiency and the other two I mentioned, are the ones that really make this happen in the rural areas in Spain.
What is the situation about secondary homes? Are there many secondary homes in these rural regions as well?
Yeah, there is a big number of secondary homes that only use internet for summer, especially in the coast, foreign people and Spanish people. And we are also working on specific offers and products, on and off products for these customers that are being really successful.
But are these wholesale offers, or are these the retailers that are on your network, are they doing these offers, or do you have a wholesale package?
No, I have a wholesale package already.
Okay, wow.
I didn't have it, now I have it. Because we have seen that many people is in Spain for 4 or 5 months, so it's no sense. And the retailers are not able to create this specific offer. So, okay, I'll do it for you, and I only charge on the months that you're using the internet. With long-term contracts. I mean, I get your compromise for a couple of years, and then I only charge the months that you are using the ONT. I see the ONT, I see the traffic, and then I charge. So this type of solutions, we are working on them, and all of this, at the end of the day, many ISPs, local products, increase take-up. And then the initial investment you make is profitable maybe in 2 years, 3 years' time, which is good. It's a good payback. It's long payback, but for rural areas, it's not bad.
Good.
Okay?
Payback is an interesting topic for Simon, I believe, because you are investing in such networks that, as Marta said, costs 5 times more costly than in the urban situation. So maybe you could give us some insights. What are you looking specifically into when you are investing into rural FTTH networks as an investor?
Sure. So I think, look, there's a genuine challenge in Europe in that obviously the price of delivery of those networks to more spread out, to more rural areas is high. And at the same time, through competitiveness, we've managed to reach a state here where, most households pay for their internet, a price of 2, 3 lunches or maybe 5 coffees, depending on where you go. And it's perceived by the society as a fairly high price to pay already. When you compare that to North America, where, ARPUs are easily above 100 in many places, it is more difficult to deliver that service at that price. Basically, people accept to pay for their energy, but it's more difficult to do that on the high-speed internet deliveries side. So we look for payback. We obviously have to. That is how we how we look at the world. But I think where we try and find a way to do it is, first of all, not to fight the market. You've seen in Spain and Poland and France, the approaches are very, very different. And every time we've come and we've tried to say, well, this is stupid, I've seen it done like that somewhere else, let me try and do it this way here, it tends to be that the market pushes back. For a very simple reason that, the ISPs, the operators, are used to behave in a certain way. In some countries, they're religiously attached to owning their own network, and they will never consider any wholesale retail type of thing. In the other countries, this is just a natural thing for an incumbent operator to jump onto someone else's network, because that's how the market works. So what I would say is we try not to reinvent the markets. We try and find new efficiencies. And where we've seen real successes is simply saying, okay, this is clearly not working. What we're going to do is we will borrow the experience from other markets, try and implement it here, but not fight the market, but simply say, given what the market is, these are the efficiencies I'm going to introduce and do it. I think the other interesting thing about rural in Europe, I think, is because of the subsidies and the way that they're implemented so differently in various markets. In some places they don't exist at all. Most of Central Eastern Europe has been actually built out quite efficiently because a lot of the EU money has gone in there fairly early on. And so you do have sometimes strange situations where there's more fiber available rurally than there is in central areas of cities. You have other areas where a little bit of money came in. I've seen a few examples in Finland where the local operator or municipality built a little bit of the backbone through the subsidy money, ran out of money, and then wasn't able to deliver any of the capillarity. And basically, so it sits there for years because there's no way to solve it, because there's no money to build that last few miles to make it. So I think the way we look at it is we try and look at each situation on its merits, figure out how it can work, and really adapt to the local circumstances to make it work. I think the great next wave is going to be building out some of those rural areas by the people that have built out the municipal areas in the neighborhoods, and then build out from those, because I think that'll take very little subsidy money, if any, to actually build it commercially. And I think in France you've seen cases where people are bidding zero subsidy to build into some of those regions. That tells you the model works, basically, right? And that's what you try and do.
I mean, subsidies is a good topic that one could have the impression that all these cases were perfectly, so everything is in order. So maybe you could give maybe some thoughts about, could you build your networks without any subsidy, and would you still make a profit?
Well, I will say if it's a greenfield build in an extremely rural area, it's going to be very difficult, almost impossible. Having the subsidies and then being able to leverage low-cost loans, low-interest loans, works to be able to ensure that connectivity reaches those areas. Reality is for our countries to be strong, the entire country needs to be covered. Yep. Back in the 30s, the U.S. did electricity, and they did telephone networks. Now it needs to be fiber networks, because any other technology is going to have to be replaced. Make the solid investment now for the future generations. Is then,
if there is a subsidy involved, is there a regulation coming in with the subsidies? So?
Well, nothing is free. So with subsidies from a government, there are requirements that you have to meet. And then, going back to the telco days, is make sure that they're, wherever there was a home or business, we had to make sure that we served it, right? When you get outside of those subsidized areas, you have more ability to determine where you deploy based on a business case. But when you're being subsidized, they're telling you you have to serve a particular area.
Maybe in France, what interests me is, you have deployed and you're kind of a wholesale-only operator, but the costs are higher in the rural part. Could you offer differentiated pricing as a wholesale price, like a lower price in a more urban situation and a higher price in a rural one? Is that possible?
No. Due to the regulation and the French plan, in France, they decided to have peréquation, so the same price in the center of Paris, at the end of Lozère, the most rural department in France. And to talk about money, when we respond to public tenders, if the average price of the construction was higher than 1,000 euros per home, we need subsidies, and under 1,000, we didn't need subsidies. Okay. And it is absolutely the same price. But at the moment, we have a strong discussion with the regulation, the four ISPs, because in the real life, we realize that to maintain 40 meters of cable per home average in comparison of Paris, where you have 2 or 3 meters of optical fiber per home to maintain for the same price. It's difficult. It's why we try to change the rules at time. I have something else to add on the first question,
Yes,
because the director of the construction of Altitude sent me a message and said, how can you say that it was easy to build in France? 5 million home pass in 8 years. It was just a marvelous challenge. And I have to add about it that we can do it, like I said, with money, with a lot of subcontractors and a global vision. Yes. But we also deployed a specific IT tools, which is like a platform between our subcontractors connected directly to the ISPs. And day by day, when they do the construction, we can have all information in our own IT system, and we can follow each subcontractors day by day. And to finalize the message and to do advertising, we finished to deploy France, so we try to find activities out of France for the construction part of Altitude.
So
I continue on the rest.
This is a
That's okay, Guillaume?
This is a real-time panel here, so well done. Maybe again Poland. So you mentioned that in rural you deploy on aerial, so poles. But what about the quality of these deployments? Are they not inferior to a deployment underground?
If I may also to add something to the discussion from a minute ago, how investment and deployment in rural areas is difficult. Right now, Poland is using a lot of EU funds, and right now there are also some projects with the EU funds in which they are offering 100% of the price of building given HP. And imagine that operators are not willing to enter into the projects. So imagine that even if you get reimbursed for the build and you build for 0 zlotych, it's still unprofitable to get into the investment.
And why? Because of the maintenance
Yes, of the maintenance phase and of the difficult areas where there is a depopulation, people are moving, people are getting older and don't need the internet. So taking all of those things, it's really difficult to say that we will be able to have 100% rollout in the rural areas, because somewhere that just doesn't make an investment sense right now.
So what you say is that it's maybe not the best idea to deploy with aerial, because it's a shortcut.
I'm afraid that it may be the case.
Due to cost savings, it's a shortcut, but it's not the best thing in terms of quality and maintenance costs.
Yes.
Well, I think we have already discussed many aspects. I would now like to open the questions and answers to the audience. So there's somebody with a microphone here. And please, if there are questions, who wants to? Yeah, Roisin.
Hi there, I'm Roisin. I'm president of the Fibre to the Home Council in Europe. I just wondered, Vincent Garnier described take-up as a challenge across Europe for fibre to the home. I have perhaps a misguided idea that in rural areas the take-up would be better. I wonder if you could describe that. At the moment, I think it's about 50% on average. Do you see the take-up higher in your rural deployments?
We have another experience in France due to the global extension of the copper. So we began to definitely stop the copper, so no infrastructure in front of optical fiber. And in rural areas, we have the same take-up or penetration than in dense area. But in rural area, where the population is more old, and our incumbent Orange, for the moment, for the whole percent, he sells to them specific box which can transfer to your fixed telephone access, okay, your fixed phone access, not using optical fiber, but using 4G or what else. But I think at the beginning we thought that our take-up will be goes fast at the beginning, and that slowly to go to our asymptote, and the asymptote is probably between 85 to 90% due to 10% of vacant or empty house everywhere. But probably we imagine that we will have a longer period due to the age of the global population, and after that, the next generation will use for sure optical fiber. So if you, it's not a problem for a long period, but it can be for on the investors a problem for a short period before the global extension of the copper. And I say that if you, in each countries, if you want to be more confident with the take-up, when you can have, like in France, for sure, a global program of extinction of the copper, it's really better.
Is it the same in Spain and Poland?
Yes, in Poland, we observe a significantly lower take-up in the rural areas. And I already mentioned that most probably because of the age of people that are living. Typically, the resident of rural areas is around 50 or even more with primary education, so no need of the internet. That's why we are focusing on this Fibre Host Academy, so on the educational level, to show those, I'm sorry to say, because I believe that we are very close to 50 years old, and we are considered as seniors, so we are working on showing the seniors that the digitalization is good and how they could, take the best of it. We are showing how they can easily get an appointment with a doctor, call to their grandchildren, make an appointment to the bank. In Poland, the administration is quite well digitalized. So we are trying to show those people that this is what they need. That's why we are focusing on education. And we see that the take-up is getting higher, not with the speed, with the curve that we are observing in urban areas. So yes, in Poland, we can see the difference.
Do you see difference as well in Spain?
In Spain, we have two cases. Population, we call rural population under 10K people. There's a lot of little spaces, 10K to 2K. And there we see penetration is arriving to similar level as big cities. Slowly, it goes slowly. And this is adding second residences, as we were talking before. Below 2K, 1.5K, that there is a huge percentage of population that the penetration take-ups are lower than metropolitan areas. We see a still path to grow, but and here again, as Marta was explaining perfectly, is related to the old age population, okay, which is limiting clearly the take-up increase.
Thank you. More questions?
Hi there, Dean Bubley from Disruptive Analysis. Are you having to adapt your strategies at all as both fixed wireless access and also satellite broadband become both more mainstream and have higher awareness? Is that causing you to shift in either pricing or packaging or partnerships or anything else?
Who wants to take this?
Can I take it maybe on a more European perspective more broadly? I think satellite, by the way, in the last year, one of the most common questions you get in various discussions and committees, what about satellite? And I think part of the reason for that question is a certain individual that owns a certain satellite company and has a fairly high profile. But I think it's a great solution when you've got no other options, basically. And to me, it is similar to delivering gas balloons to someone's house, which is great if you need to cook and you've got nothing else. But the moment you got the pipe, you'll probably use the pipe. So I think where satellite is concerned, I think that may be a solution to some of that last 2% that we just discussed. And I think it works great, by the way. It's a fine solution if you don't have fiber. If you have fiber, I don't think it compares.
Also due to the capacity of the satellites. If you do satellites for everybody, okay, the satellites goes down directly, okay? So for 2%, probably it's cool.
Maybe Jimmy, since Elon comes from the US, you could maybe give us hot news about
we can talk about Telsat, not Elon.
So, I mean, we've used every technology out there. We used fiber. Before that, we had copper, coax, fixed. We still have some fixed wireless assets. But what I'll tell you from an operator, I want fiber because the operational cost of maintaining that fiber is significantly less than fixed wireless or copper or coax. Okay, it provides a better, more consistent service to our customers. Satellite, just like you said, if you're the only person using it, then okay, it's going to be all right. It's okay. When Elon Musk launched that, he called it better than nothing internet. I agree. It is better than nothing. And it's actually not bad if you're the only one using it in a geographic area. But like cellular, because there are folks who have tried cellular to the home, T-Mobile probably the most in the US, but that has limitations. Just like when the folks, you go to a concert or you go to a big venue with a lot of people, those cell sites get bogged down. A fixed user uses so much more than a mobile user. They found that was a challenge, right? So satellites are no different. They have a place. I think it's in areas where you can't get electricity personally, but it is an option, and for somebody who doesn't have another way of being connected, it works.
And in France, we have now 75% of global penetration between dense and rural areas. So we can have more experience about the maintenance. And now we can say that we have 6 less failure on optical fiber than other technology at time for each end users. So the cost is lower.
Great. Maybe one last question, anybody?
Sorry.
Hi, Krešimir from Croatia. I have a question for Jose. You said that you have special offers for wholesale, for second home, and these offers. Do you have some obligation, 2, 3, 4 years contract? And what is the shortest time for this 2 months, 3 months? And what is product? Fiber access or BSIM access?
Yeah, normally we sign a 2 years contract. It's a compromise with the operator because at the end of the day we don't go to retail, and we get disconnection for no more than 9 months per year. So it's 3 months of activity minimum on a 2 years contract basis. Okay. And this is the contract we signed with the operator, retail operator, and then they resell it how they want to. I mean, it's not a permanent condition from our side to the final customer, and it's working really well. Because we have realized that, especially in the coast areas, Andalucía, Levante, there is a lot of foreign people that is coming in May and leaving in October, and it's high ARPU customers that are only for 6 months. They have their own house, and they were paying for the whole year. And now it's a dedicated service, and we have seen also that the lifetime value of these customers is pretty much longer now than it was before, because they used to get at October disconnection, and then they came back in May and start the process. So it was sending an installation guy 2 times, the ONT. So, I mean, at the end of the day, you save cost, and you have a satisfied customer on a long-term view. So that's the case.
Thank you. I think it's a good ending of this panel. So thank you very much, David, Jimmy, Marta, Jose, and Simon for this very interesting insights about rural fiber deployment. After you said your words about the satellite technologies, I'm confident that fiber will be the technology for the future, even for the very rural parts. And I think this concludes this panel. Thank you very much for your attention, and have a good trip back. Thank you.